Sean, I'm George from MovieWeb. Nice to talk to you today.
Hey George, nice to meet you.
I see you have a camera behind you. Is it a prop or is it a real film camera?
It's a real film camera.
Nice. What kind?
That's an Ariflex 16T.
Do you shoot as a hobby with, real film?
I do, yeah, I do actually. Yeah, I
Because you have a
do.
photography background, right? So,
I do. So yeah, I'm often testing lenses and film stocks, and so I'm often with a camera.
can you tell me how, when you're shooting, on a digital format, like usually we are with features these days, and it's something like the cut, but you want to give it the most cinematic look possible, and you care about film and you use film a lot, how you approach that strategically?
What if you're shooting digitally?
Yeah.
Uh, well, I always say if you want the film look, you got to shoot film.
So how do you approach the digital when you do shoot
I
digital?
don't. I don't. I try not to shoot digital. I've done six films and only one of them has been digital. So I've been lucky enough to shoot film on most of my movies. And and yeah, I mean that digital one that I did do, I mean that was purely out of budgetary reasons, really. I couldn't, there was no way I could sustain. And also we were shooting in a place that didn't have any photo labs, so it was an impossibility of trying to execute it with film.
I'm a big proponent and fan of when people actually use film, which is why I'm immediately going down this road because I see the camera and we're talking about it. And I guess I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about why it's important to you and what it does to the story or to the process, to the project.
You know, when I was a fashion photographer, I think we were on the front line of the swap between film and digital. So digital cameras were coming in to our industry earlier than what they came into the film industry, and I noticed, you know, like every other photographer, we started experimenting with digital cameras on set, and and they had this monitor and you were tethered and you would shoot and then you would look at the monitor and then you would shoot. And I noticed straight away that there was a difference in the way that we worked professionally. And what I noticed was that um, a concentration period of shooting some Polaroids to make sure that the lighting's okay, and then shooting like three or four rolls of film, and then finishing with a few more Polaroids. You would normally then discuss the Polaroids, knowing that in between the two sets of Polaroids, you had the shots,
Hmm.
right? Film. And people would say, "Oh, I really like this. That's lovely there." And you go, "Oh, yeah, that's nice." And you'd crop it and you go, "Well, let's see if we can go back in there and get a bit more like that." So you would start with a couple more Polaroids. You'd go in and you would concentrate for five, six rolls of film. And then you'd finish with some Polaroids. And then the whole process you'd go over again. What I noticed when digital came in was everybody stood at the monitor just directing the shoot
Hmm.
from the monitor. And the concentration kind of went as well. The photographer was spending a lot more time looking at the monitor and then going back doing a couple more shots, then coming back looking at the monitor. And and also like I noticed that the power went from the photographer to the stylist. And
Hmm.
that was a really interesting process. So basically what I saw was the stylists were that sort of directing the photo shoot from the monitor. And so at that point, a lot of the photo shoots started to look very much the same because it became about the stylist and it became about the retouching.
Hmm.
And the sort of photographer in a weird way was kind of what he was known for, or what she was known for, was a style of using a certain film, a certain format, certain camera, certain printer, certain printing technique. Back in sort of 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, you can look at a picture and know who the photographer is. Whereas today, you have no idea
Hmm.
because the style of that person kind of went with the sort of the onslaught of digital. And I find the same thing on movie sets. When you don't have that discipline of shooting film stock, which is the preparation, the rehearsal, the lighting, and then and then actually executing what it is that you want. Um, the digital, enabled you to shoot and shoot and shoot and not worry about those costs of the film going through the camera.
Mm.
And so these very lazy habits kind of took over, where a director wouldn't call cut, and it was rolling and rolling, and they're just looking for something. They're not quite sure. They're waiting for something to happen, and they might capture it. But with for the crew and for the actors, there's a sort of fatigue that starts to happen, where you're recording like hours of stuff, and like there's no discipline to, like, okay, let's do it, let's act, let's it, you say action for a reason, right? You should say cut for a reason too. And I think the directors, like overshooting like that is the director's version of overacting in a weird way. Um, so yeah, I don't like that discipline of what can happen on a set with digital cameras. I mean, obviously it's great for certain things. Um,
I
but
wonder if, you've talked about so many of the things that make it powerful for process. But on the other side, a lot of times people talk today about things looking the same, or things looking a little bit the same, or just like colors, or like there's just like a feeling missing, I think. And film, because it happens a little bit in mystery, right? Between when it's shot and when it's developed,
yeah.
there's a little more like fingerprints on it. Can you talk a little bit about, or put some words to what audiences are complaining about? Because they are frequently saying, God, it all looks the same, or it's kind of like mush, or it's kind of like it doesn't have that, it's not popping, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't. I mean, there are certain ways of getting digital to sort of look a little bit like film, but then I'm like, why don't you just shoot film? Uh, I don't know. I mean, I like that thing that you're talking about, that sort of chemistry part,
Mm,
because we talk about chemistry between people, and I have that. I talk about it in the same way as like from when we shoot to what we see. There's a chemistry that happens, and I love that. I
mm,
love I love the not knowing 100%. I think
mhm,
ultimately there's always some happy mistakes
mhm.
uh, along the way, where you go, oh, I can't quite accounted for that, and that's really interesting. It's giving me, it's like, there's something very lovely about your mistakes, because
And
I honestly think your career is a catalogue of mistakes. Like, I think back on my career, and it is like all the things that I wanted to try and do, but ended up having to go, well, we haven't got enough budget, we haven't got enough time. It is what it is, and that's that. So in a weird way, you look back and you go, people talk about my style or whatever, or the style of something, and well, that's generally just a catalogue of your mistakes. It's happen. If you want to be a director, you have to learn to live with those mistakes. I often, say directing is just learning how to compromise, because a lot of the time it is, you are just going, oh, that's what I wanted, but it's not what I got. But at the end of the day, you have to live with it. But
and you
yeah,
can't
I love
make all these little micro changes as you go, because not every in film, because it's not all in a digital medium where you can go in and tinker with every little frame and one and zero. I want to make sure I ask a little bit directly about the cut, because it's a really interesting movie outside of the visual element. Working with Orlando Bloom, who's incredible, and collaborating on The Boxer. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys arrived at his the mental game is so much of what the movie is, his mental battle. And thematically, I want to hear you discuss kind of where the two of you, what you discussed, and how you arrived where you did.
Uh, well, we definitely, had all those discussions up front, and it is a psychological kind of autopsy on an athlete who is still willing to get back in the arena and try and do something that he feels is gonna actually make his life better. What he what he doesn't realize, or what he finds out, is that often what you want and what you need are two different things. And I think that's a story of a guy who's discovering the fact that he's doing things for the wrong reason.
Hmm. What are
And
some ways Orlando Bloom and John Turturro surprised you on set with their collaboration, with their ideas, with their style?
John John came to set with something that was just fully formed as a character. I mean, he even showed up with his own outfit. Like he was like, "This is Boz," and I was like, "Okay, it's great. Yeah, you're right. It is Boz." And he was Boz. From the moment he kind of stepped into the set, he was like, "This is how I'm going to play him. I can give you two ways, like this and that." And so you would do two takes, and we'd have different variations of how he felt Boz should be. And but I mean, it, that came out of a collaboration between me and him just talking for a number of weeks, really. And then he was kind of,
Mm,
that was his preparation.
mm,
Talking about the script, talking about lines, talking about scenes, talking about, life stories. Oh, I remember this time that this guy said to me about this, that, and the other. And yeah, isn't that interesting? And you kind of go, yeah. And he goes, what if he's playing that sort of way with him rather than so that all that was preparation. And obviously Orlando's preparation was way more physical.
mm, mm.
And obviously came to us a crazy lightweight and like 3% body weight, and we've been eating tuna and cucumber for like 3 weeks or something, and doing Epsom salt baths, and just doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And he looked gaunt and ill, and he just he would lie on the floor in between takes. But I mean, we were shooting backwards, so I was worried that he was going to know where he was emotionally through the process of shooting. But that was one of the biggest surprises, looking at that rough cut, that first rough cut, and seeing how he stuck the landing, which was kind of amazing, really, because I was like, he knew kind of where he was. His brain worked out where it was supposed to be emotionally, and he showed up and just swung for the fences, and did just an amazing performance.
So he kind of lived it. I mean, he had to,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. I'd call him at night, and he'd answer the phone in an Irish accent. He'd be like, "Hello?" And he talks like the whole time, even like through pre-production, he was working on his accent. He had an Irish person who was training him and helping him with the accent, sort of literally living with him full time. And then I remember on the day we wrapped, we all clapped and everything, and Orlando stepped forward and he goes in his normal like English accent, "Hey guys, I'd just really like to say thank you to everyone." We all looked at each other like, "Who the fuck is this?" Like we were so used to him like being boxer, that we were all really thrown that day. It was quite funny.
Orlando Bloom showed up finally, not
Yeah,
boxer.
yeah. I
Did
mean, there was
he, did you worry about him? Like lying on the floor? Like I worried about him watching the movie, but that was the character. But I wonder, like, do you worry about his safety? Like all that he was going
um,
through?
I mean, yeah, I mean, we had all that in hand. He had a team around him, and he had some good support. But I mean, he was mentally he was in a very strange place, because he was calorie starved, and
Hmm.
he was living this role. And I think um, yeah, he was hungry, and he had sort of short temper, and he had short concentration, and so yeah, he really was. It was a real method way, I suppose, of getting it done. And we were happy when he started eating again, and he was putting the calories back on, and he started to be a bit more balanced. But yeah,
There
yeah.
are so many things that happen when you're watching the film. Oh, I got a rep. Sorry. I was just gonna ask you one more, but
You
I
can
got
ask
the
one
reps.
more. You can ask one more.
There's so many times watching the film where I was like, I can't tell what's actually happening or where I'm in his head. And I'm
Right.
curious if that was by design and how you see it. Did we experience that story from inside his head to you? Or are we seeing something happen on the outside? Or are we living in his
I
mind?
mean, it's good that you see it that way, and I would support that.
Okay.
Uh, because I think we spoke quite a lot about the fact that, sometimes we have these voices in our head that drive us to do things or not to drive us to do things. The little devil or angel on our shoulders. And it was definitely something that I was conscious of when we were making, and definitely something that I said, maybe Boz is just a fragment of his imagination. It's the drive. Maybe even Caitlin is like the carer, the mother figure in his life. And Manny's the small boy, and Lupe is the guy that has to come out when shit needs to get done. He's the fighter. So I like the idea of playing with the fact that these are aspects of his personality.
And I love that you don't want to say. You're like, maybe it's up to you to decide.
So, I mean, you can see it both ways. I mean, I think if you see it more than once, you'll see the answer there. It will be
Okay.
clear for you. You'll be like, yeah, I on the second viewing, I kind of now understand who they are, what they are.
Okay, well, we can wrap there because now everyone has to see it twice, right? Thank you so much, Sean.
Well,
Thanks, everybody. Really
okay,
appreciate
man.
it.
Cheers.